Welcome back to the channel. We'd flown on Aer Lingus several times before, to and from Dublin. This time though, we wanted to try out Aer Lingus's business class. We were able to find a decent fare, and booked those tickets right away. Not only were these tickets a good deal, but they would give us a chance to ride on Aer Lingus's A330 and A321, both equipped with the new and improved business class seats. We made sure to both reserve the coveted throne seats, and I wanted to try out a window seat as well. We made the commute to Chicago's O'Hare Airport only to find right away that our flight was delayed. This was only our first disappointment today. We were still looking forward to the flight, and we made our way up to the check-in desk, through security, and then into Terminal 5. Our first step was to get to the lounge. We had used the airport lounges in Terminal 5 before. In fact, just a few weeks earlier, we had been in the British Airways Terraces Lounge. However, if you saw that video, you would know that the Terraces Lounge definitely did not live up to our expectations. We were hoping that the Swissport Lounge, which is the contract lounge that Aer Lingus uses in Terminal 5 at Chicago, would be better. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. This lounge was a little bit better than the British Airways Lounge, but it was still a small and dingy space. In fact, if it wasn't for the free snacks and drinks, you wouldn't be able to tell this room apart from a hospital waiting room. Generally, passengers holding a priority pass can also enter this lounge. When it came to the food and drink, there were plenty of things to drink, but really not that many choices for food, and there were no hot options for food either. You could have a prepackaged sandwich, or something like a pasta salad. One good thing about the lounge was that the internet was decent. We were able to get a little bit of work done before our flight. We had already known that our flight was delayed about an hour, so we were waiting for the lounge staff to call our flight. They did so, and we made our way over to the gate, only to wait another 45 minutes before being able to board. We did have a connection in Dublin back to Munich, so we were a little bit worried that our flight was now delayed about an hour and a half, and we still weren't on the plane. Finally, boarding was called, and we faced our next disappointment on this trip. They had switched our plane. Equipment changes happen. We understand that's a regular part of operating an airline. However, we had booked these tickets specifically because of the seats that we were going to get. We really wanted to test out the new business class. However, we found ourselves on the old version of the A330, which has business class seating in a 222 layout. This, compared to the new 122 alternating with a 121 layout in business class, meant that we would have much less room in our seats, which to us meant less comfort. Because the business class cabin had changed so drastically, there were plenty of empty seats. Other than the fact that the seating layout had changed, our first impressions were actually pretty good. The seats looked comfortable, and other than looking a little bit dated, the cabin was actually very smart. There was plenty of legroom in the seats, and the wood inlays gave the cabin a very cozy feel. The TV screens actually offered up quite a bit of privacy, and there were privacy screens between the two seats as well. We were hoping we'd be able to use this privacy to get some sleep as we journeyed out over Canada, across the Atlantic, and into the Emerald Isle. Our flight time today was 7 hours and 25 minutes. Our flight attendants came around with pre-departure drinks, which could either be an orange juice or champagne, and we got ourselves acquainted with the seats. After a few minutes, the captain came on and told us we would be delayed another 30 minutes because our flight had missed its slot. Eventually, we pushed back from the stand and made our way out to the runway. The engine spooled up, and we took off to the east over Lake Michigan. Finally, about an hour and 50 minutes late, we left Chicago's AerSpace. Now that we were airborne, we took a look at the menu for tonight's dinner. Tonight for our starter, we could get a cauliflower panna cotta or a green pea and courgette soup. For the entrees, we had the choice between a vegetarian option, a skin-on roast chicken breast, or an Asian beef dish. There were also plenty of drinks that we could choose from. As we waited for our meals, the flight attendants brought around some drinks biscuits and some surprisingly good onion jam. They also brought another round of drinks as we settled down for dinner. The tablecloths were set, and our meals were brought out. For the starter today, I got the panna cotta, which was really good and very light. And with that, I got the not-so-light Asian beef with fingerling potatoes. Very delicious. Catherine also got the panna cotta starter, but she decided to go with the chicken dish. She said it was really good. For dessert, I decided on the cheese tray, which was an excellent choice, although I wish there was more cheese on here. Catherine went with the chocolate ganache tart, which she said was very decadent. With dinner out of the way, we decided to check out the IFE and maybe watch a movie before trying to get a few hours of sleep. We plugged in our headphones, but Catherine was having some issues with hers. Headphones aren't working, huh?
No, this is my second time that headphones have not worked on a plane. Okay.
Yeah. We'll see if they end up working.
I know, I'm anxious.
I was having a hard time even getting the remote, which was to my left behind the headrest. You have to fully turn around in your seat in order to get this out of its holder. If you have some limited mobility issues, or can't bend your arms very well, this might be difficult to get. Remote in hand, we started looking through all of the entertainment options. The entertainment options were actually fairly good, with a few hundred movies and TV shows that you could watch. It's many of the same ones that you'd expect to see on other flights. Of course, there's also flight information and an in-flight map that you can also look at. After spending some more time with the IFE system, we decided it was time to close our eyes and try to get a few hours of sleep before landing in Dublin. About an hour and a half before landing, we were awakened by the sound of the flight attendants getting breakfast ready. Breakfast this morning was a warm bacon roll, some granola with yogurt, and a pastry. It was all very filling and very satisfying. And of course I had a much-needed caffeine hit as well. Breakfast consumed, I headed to the bathroom to use my dental kit before landing in Dublin. The bathroom in the business class cabin of this flight is very nice. It was very clean, quite spacious, and of course we always love having a loo with a view. We did receive amenity kits as well, which have just about everything you'd expect to get, including a dental kit, earplugs, eye mask, moisturizers, and more. We love flying these late-night flights because we get some amazing views in the morning. There's just something special about flying over the clouds during a sunrise, and this morning was one of those mornings. Before we knew it, the captain had turned on the fasten seatbelt sign and started our descent into Dublin. We had made up a bit of time in the air, but we were still landing about an hour late. We plowed through some clouds on the way down into Dublin, getting a great view of the city as we descended. Having one flight done, we started looking at the departure time for our next flight, which was leaving on time from Dublin to go to Munich. Once again, we were excited because we'd be on the updated business class of the A321. This business class has the throne seating, alternating between a 2-2 and 1-1 layout. We chose seats 3A and 3K, which were the throne seats directly next to each other, with an aisle in between. We made our way through the connections area of the airport, got down to the gate, and then looked out and saw our plane. However, this wasn't what we expected. This was an A320. Once again, Aer Lingus had had an equipment change. as the ramp agents were frantically getting people their new boarding passes with updated seat numbers, we walked down the jet bridge onto the plane and found that there was nothing special about this seat layout. Not only that, but we were actually bumped from business class into economy because there's only one row of AerSpace business class available on this plane. That being said, there really isn't anything more to report about this flight. Now that the flight's over, what did we think? First, let's talk about the lounges. Just like the British Airways Terraces Lounge, this lounge was a complete disappointment. It's dark, it's dingy, there's not many food options, and it was crowded. The contract lounges in Terminal 5 are just awful at Chicago's O'Hare Airport. To be honest, the airline really can't do much more, because there aren't any good lounges here. Unfortunately, we have to give this lounge a 2 out of 5. What about the seats? We were pleasantly surprised by the seat on this aircraft. After the initial disappointment of not sitting in the business class cabin that we had purchased and already selected our seats in, we got used to these seats. They were decent, they were fairly private for what they were, and they were comfortable. The IFE system was decent, although Catherine's headphones didn't work. There were power sockets, and overall it was a decent seat, just average. We'll give these seats a 3 out of 5. So what about the food? Overall, we thought the food was very good on these flights. There was a wide selection on the menu, and we love it when we can choose between more than one appetizer. The food itself was prepared well, it was warm, and my beef wasn't cooked to the point of feeling like rubber. The breakfast was also substantial, which was very enjoyable. Overall, we give the food a 4 out of 5. So what did we think about the service? Overall, the service on this flight was amazing. The flight crew was extremely helpful, very proactive, and didn't just disappear when the lights went out. They were actively walking around seeing if we needed anything additional, and they were extremely cheery the whole time. If we could give a higher rating than 5, we would. 5 out of 5. Now let's talk about the value for money. We booked this as a multi-city trip, from Dublin to Chicago, and then from Chicago to Munich through Dublin. We were actually surprised at the price. This leg of the journey, going from Chicago to Dublin to Munich in business class, cost 924 euros. We thought this was a great deal, and for what we got, we thought it was well worth it. We actually had a really good time on this flight. It was extremely disappointing that the lounge did not meet our expectations and that they had changed their equipment on both of our flights. That has never happened to us before, and unfortunately it meant that we had to sit in the old business class on our transatlantic flight and sit in economy on our flight to Munich. We do still have a claim pending for the downgrade in service, but we're expecting to receive that soon. Also, as a quick side note, although it's not the airline's fault, we did have our luggage lost. This really is the Dublin airport's fault. We hope you enjoyed, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.